Hello and welcome to An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about The Chronicles of Riddick from 2004. And this film is set 5 years after the events of Pitch Black. After escaping from that planet and the monsters that infest it, Riddick has been in hiding, evading bounty hunters and mercenaries that are sent to capture him. After one such attack, he manages to steal the ship from the hunters and heads to Helion Prime, the planet from which the bounty originated, in order to find out, who is sending these people. And there he discovers one of the fellow survivors from Pitch Black, Imam. And Imam reveals that Helion Prime is about to be conquered by the Necromongers, religious fanatics who seek to convert all human life and kill those who refuse. Imam also reveals that he believes Riddick to be a Furion, a race of warriors long thought extinct and who are prophesied to be the only ones who can stop the Lord Marshal of the Necromongers. There are some very silly names in this film. The rest of the movie, of course, is primarily concerned with Riddick being all taciturn and grumbling about how he's not a hero while he slaughters lots of necromongers and random other people on the way to his inevitable showdown with the Lord Marshal. So I saw this film back when it first hit cinemas, so a long time ago now. And at the time, my reaction to it was, I guess it was fine. When I rewatched it on DV many years later, however, my reaction veered sharply into kind of active dislike of the film. Let's talk about why that was. So nominally, as mentioned earlier, this film is a sequel to Pitch Black. Though, apart from the presence of Vin Diesel's Riddick, there's really precious little to connect the two. A pair of characters from the first film do reappear, but frankly, a couple of minutes of rewrites would easily remove even that tenuous connection. Now, of course, not many characters carry over. It's not a barrier. It's not an absolute barrier, certainly, to making a sequel. Even a significant shift in genre, as happens here with a change from horror to action, isn't an impossible chasm to cross. Aliens is a very different film to Alien, and it shares only one character, two if you count the cat. But it's still recognisably a sequel to the earlier movie. And yeah, part of that is the highly recognisable xenomorph antagonists. But Aliens also acknowledges, reflects on, and develops the themes of its predecessor. Even if it's not tonally identically the same, it feels like a continuation. That is not true of the Chronicles of Riddick. Pitch Black worked as a film, not just because it had memorable monsters and some good tense moments, but because it established coherent characters and developed them in thematically consistent ways. The pressure of the challenges they faced forged some of them into stronger, better people, while it shattered others. Now, becoming a better person didn't necessarily mean that you got to survive the film, mind you, but the movie worked to show you the development of those characters nonetheless. This film fails to engage with or build on any of those themes at all. Instead, it relies entirely on spectacle and growly one-liners. Nobody grows or changes here. Things happen, but they have no impact on the characters who experience them, other than the most obvious and banal of ways, whether they live or die. It's a film without any emotional weight or without any emotional element at all, really. Secondly, the film lacks any kind of compelling antagonists. I've called it lack of adversary. It's not that there is no adversity. Riddick faces lots of adversity, but he lacks an adversary worth the name. The big bads are the Necromongers, who are basically, space necromancers. Pretty much everything in this movie is a science fiction version of some fantasy trope. The problem is they're boring and bland and largely faceless. Only Karl Urban and his wife, their characters, get much actual screen time. And since Urban's character is not the actual leader of the Necromongers, just an uppity, wannabe, he's clearly not actually going to be a real threat. The actual leader, the Lord Marshal, is given very little screen time. And while we're supposed to be impressed by his semi-magical powers in the climactic battle with Riddick, the main thing I took away is how is this goofball unable to actually kill his enemy when he has all the advantages? The secondary villain, exists only to be punked at every turn. Basically, this film is much more concerned with telling us how cool Riddick is than on actually giving his adversaries any weight of their own, which is, of course, ultimately counterproductive, because your heroes are only actually as cool as the villains they defeat. And Riddick never faces anyone who, frankly, doesn't look like a chump. And if you beat chumps, what did you prove? Absolutely nothing. Lastly, and this is a big problem for me, Jack, who is now named Kira, a character from the first film, brought back here and renamed, presumably to emphasize that she is the token female. And man, like, I hate everything this film does with her character after the first 2 minutes that she's on screen. It's just awful, awful, awful all the time. Even if the remainder of the film was good, I'd probably hate it just for this. Kira, you see, first reappears as this grimy, tough-as-nails badass who actually puts Riddick off balance, and that's great! And then she spends the rest of the movie in 100% faux action girl mode. She's constantly being captured, held hostage, and threatened with death as a motivation for Riddick to do stuff. And then she's ultimately actually killed off because horrors, we couldn't possibly have keep anyone around who might take the spotlight off Riddick for even a single nanosecond. And hey, yeah, just spoiled a major element of the climax of the movie, but I haven't spoiled anything because, you're probably going to be sitting there just waiting for the movie to end anyway. Yeah. It's terrible treatment of the character. And as a fan of Pitch Black, it's doubly frustrating to see what they did with her. And it's one of the main reasons I've never bothered to watch the sequel to this sequel. So that is Chronicles of Riddick and why I frankly don't like it. Next time, we're going to do 1963 schlock, The Atomic Brain, also known as Monstrosity. It's a very silly movie, and if you've looked closely, you might even notice that like the poster credits the cat in the cast list. It's that kind of movie, basically. But that's next time. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it.